Good afternoon, everybody. I have, as you can imagine, done a lot of thinking over the last few days, and I am clear that I have to do what's right for my country, Scotland. This isn't easy, and it's not without pain, as I have a genuine friendship with Keir Starmer. But my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. And I am not willing to sacrifice Scotland's NHS, our schools, our communities, our towns, cities, villages and islands to a third decade of an SNP government. That's why the distraction needs to end and the leadership in Downing Street has to change. It is so obvious that we desperately need change in Scotland. And in 3 months' time, the opportunity to get rid of a failing SNP government is one that is too important to be missed. We cannot allow the failures at the heart of Downing Street to mean the failures continue here in Scotland. Because the election in May is not without consequence for the lives of Scots. We have an NHS crisis where too many Scots can't access the treatment they need and when they need it. We have a housing emergency with more than 10,000 Scottish children homeless right now. And we have too many young people not feeling safe at school or on our streets or missing out on the opportunities they deserve. And we have an SNP government that is addicted to secrecy and cover-ups with devastating consequences. That's why I have to be honest about failure wherever I see it. The situation in Downing Street is not good enough. There have been too many mistakes. They promised they were going to be different, but too much has happened. Have there been good things? Of course there have, many of them, but no one knows them and no one can hear them because they're being drowned out. That's why it cannot continue. I am proud to have played my part in removing a Tory government that was doing so much damage to Scotland. And having a Labour government matters. I am proud of my Scottish Labour MPs who did the hard work, persuaded our fellow Scots, ran a historic and successful campaign, and who have spent every day since fighting for Scotland's interests. I'm proud of these Scottish Labour ministers serving at every level of government, delivering for Scotland. I want them to stay in government, because I said right at the start that my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. That's why they must continue to defend and protect Scotland's interests. Keir Starmer is a decent man, and it is no secret that I've always got on well with him, and he has dedicated his life to public service. I have also dedicated myself to public service, and I need to decide what I'm willing to accept and what I'm willing to tolerate. The people of this great country, Scotland, are crying out for competent government, for transparency, for honesty, and for delivery. They want to see politics that is open and accountable. They want to see leaders who put the national interest before themselves. That is the standard I will always apply. In 3 months, we have an election that must be about one thing and one thing only: Scotland. That is my duty, that is my priority, that is my loyalty, and that is Scotland's choice. Thank you. I'll open up for some questions. I'll take Glenn Campbell from the BBC.
Anas Sarwar, just spell out why you want change and why you think that will end what you call distraction. Wouldn't it just plunge your party and the country into further chaos as a new leader is sought?
I think the reality is, Glenn, that there are so many achievements of a UK Labour government, so many good things that are happening across our country. But if you ask people, they can't see them and they can't hear them because the leadership in Downing Street has become a huge distraction. And I've had to think about my own priority, and my own priority, my first loyalty, is to Scotland. And Scotland needs to fundamentally take the opportunity for change here in Scotland in 3 months' time.
But who do you want to replace Keir Starmer? And if that
let me be
a leadership contest, won't that cause months of chaos?
Let me be really clear. I am not supporting or backing any alternative or any candidate. This is not about MPs versus MSPs. This is about what is right for Scotland. And it is for the UK Cabinet, it is for Downing Street, it is for the UK Labour Party to decide any process, any timeline and what comes next. Colin Mackay from STB.
You told me on Thursday you thought that Keir Starmer would still be Prime Minister come the election in May. What's changed since Thursday?
Well, what I said to you, Colin, was that yes, he could, but we needed answers. And I think, to be honest, the answers and the issues are much broader now. There have been too many incidences where the wrong judgment calls have been made. There have been too many mistakes, and that is distracting from the vital work of government, and it's also distracting from the big choice that people in Scotland have to make in 3 months' time, and that's why I think it needs to change in Downing Street.
Have you told the Prime Minister about this statement before making it?
Yes, I spoke to the Prime Minister earlier today, and I think it's safe to say that he and I disagreed. Conor Gillies from Sky.
Anas Sarwar, one of your own Scottish Labour MPs, is reacting to what you're saying here, calling it idiotic, immature, incoherent and self-defeating. It's playing right into your opponent's hands, according to that senior figure. Have you done this to blame the Prime Minister if you fail to become First Minister in May? And second of all, if you don't mind, last year you called Peter Mandelson an old friend when it was public knowledge that he had links with Jeffrey Epstein. How do we take you seriously on cleaning up politics when one of your own Scottish Labour MSPs is best friends with a convicted paedophile?
Well, let me first say that the approach of briefings I have always called out. And that's why I'm not taking the approach of briefing, I'm not taking the approach of talking to journalists in private. I'm being upfront and honest about my view and my first priority and my first loyalty being to Scotland, and that's why I'm doing what I believe is best for Scotland. And let me also be clear that Peter Mandelson is not someone or something I want to be associated with. I met him in his capacity as the ambassador ambassador to the US because that was the right thing to do in Scotland's interest. But should he have been appointed the ambassador? No. Should he be a member of the Labour Party? No. Should he have a seat in the House of Lords? He shouldn't. And it's right now that he is investigated by the police. Peter Smith from ITV.
Who else did you speak to about delivering this speech today? Who knew that this was coming?
Look, I've obviously spoken to those in my own team. I have had many conversations with many figures across the UK Labour family, both in government and out. And I've been really honest with them about my view, the situation we're in, how I believe this is intolerable, and that I am going to do what I think is right for my country, Scotland. I could have chose to stay quiet, to keep the head below the parapet, and just carry on as if everything was fine for the next 3 months. But my first loyalty and my first priority is to Scotland. And Scotland so desperately needs a different kind of government in Scotland. I mean, you think about some of the things I've been speaking about in the last few weeks. We have had the most intolerable cover-up at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, where lives were lost, families were lied to, staff were gaslit. Do we really want to sacrifice Scotland's NHS to a third decade of the SNP? We have children that are feeling unsafe in the classroom or on the streets because of knife crime or the challenge of mobile phones and social media. Do we want a government that's going to stand up on those issues and fight young people's corner? Do we want to sacrifice another generation to SNP government? No. I'm not willing to sacrifice Scotland and Scotland's services and Scotland's towns, cities, villages and islands to a third decade of SNP government. So I am going to do what's right by my country, Scotland.
Did you speak to either West Streeting or Andy Burnham before giving this speech, and would you expect others to also come forward and repeat your message?
Well, I've spoken to many figures both in and out of the Cabinet. It is for them to decide their own view and what they choose to do or not do. I'm making my own decision based upon my own view, being my own man. And I'm going to put... Not at all. And it's for others to do their own decisions and make their own minds out about what they feel is tolerable. This isn't good enough. It needs to change, and I'm going to do what's right by my country, Scotland. Catherine from Channel 4.
Is your position anyone is better than Keir Starmer? And secondly, are you comfortable being the public face that pulls the trigger on a Prime Minister when some of your colleagues, including the Welsh First Minister, already appears to be rolling back on this?
Well, first of all, as I said, I'm going to do what I think is right by my country, Scotland. This is not a coordination. I'm not speaking to others about what they do or don't do. That is for other people to decide. Ultimately, it's for those in number 10, those around the cabinet table, and those in the UK Labour Party to decide what happens next, the process, the timeline, or who comes next. That's not a matter for me. The only job that I'm concentrating on is making sure that we change the government here in Scotland, remove John Swinney and the SNP from office, so we can take a different approach here in Scotland.
If this was wrong, would you resign if Keir Starmer doesn't step down?
I am standing to be Scotland's First Minister. I'm being open about my view. I could choose to keep my view a secret. I could choose to brief in private. That's not the approach I take. I'm doing what I think is right. I'm doing what I believe is my first priority and first loyalty to my country, Scotland, and I'm being my own man, making my own decisions. It's for other people to decide their own view. I'll take Paul from the Daily Record.
You've always had a good relationship with the Prime Minister, so how did he respond when you told him what you're going to do today? And is it possible for you to win the election if he stays in post?
Well, let me first of all say, there is probably no one in Scottish politics that's had a better relationship with Keir Starmer or a closer friendship with Keir Starmer than I have. He is someone that I have campaigned alongside, worked alongside for the last 5 years in my role as leader, someone that I campaigned ferociously for to make sure we could get rid of a Tory government, and someone who I have supported in the last 18 months. So does this cause me personal hurt and pain? Of course it does. This man is someone that I regard as a friend and who I have a certain level of loyalty to. But my first priority and my first loyalty has to be to my country, Scotland. And that's the decision I have made. In terms of the election on the 7th of May, the two candidates for First Minister are me and John Swinney. And that's the choice people have in Scotland. A third decade of the SNP with all the failure that we have seen, or a First Minister that's going to put Scotland first, Scotland's towns, cities and villages first, and Scotland's NHS and public services first. That's the platform I'll be standing on, and that's what I hope to persuade people of over the next 3 months. Mark from the Sun. Oh, sorry, Mark, didn't see you there.
Going back to what you just said about your knowledge of Peter Mandelson, you described in that tweet as your old friend. So it's not like you just met on that one occasion as an ambassador. So how long have you known Peter Mandelson? How long have you known about his links to Jeffrey Epstein? And why didn't you demur when you were asked to meet him on the steps? And to go back to the other question, if Keir Starmer stays, will you go?
So I have known Peter since around 2021. I obviously spoke to him in Washington when I was there to defend and protect Scotland's interests, partly through Tartan Week, partly through the negotiations at the US-UK trade deal and all the importance that has for our country. I didn't appoint him US ambassador, he was appointed as US ambassador, and it was right that I had those conversations with him to protect Scotland's interests. But is that someone that I want to be associated with? No. He has betrayed this country, he has betrayed the party he was once a member of, and he has betrayed the public in terms of his actions and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And to the other point you make, it is now for others to decide any process, any timeline, and who the next Prime Minister may be. I'm going to spend all my time concentrating on removing John Swinney, changing the government here in Scotland, and making sure we deliver the new direction Scotland needs. Thank you all so much.
If those people decide he should stay, will you go?
Well, that's for them to decide. I'm only answerable to one group of people. That's the people of Scotland. That's who I serve. That's who I stand for. That's who I'm campaigning for. And that's the people I want to deliver for. I only have one relationship and one loyalty that matters most to me, and that's to Scotland. Thank you.